back. This one's called Color Ghost. Create a class Ghost. Ghost objects are instantiated without any arguments. Ghost objects are given a random color attribute of white or yellow or purple or red when instantiated. So notice the constructor has no parameters, it's just empty parentheses there. And then when they access this color property, it should be one of these 4 colors. So they're not very clear on how this happens. I assume that this color, lowercase c, is some kind of public property that they're going to call in their tests. And they have a note down in the test section to replace examples and use TDD by writing your own tests. And TDD is a method of writing software where you're sort of writing tests as you need them. You write the test first, it fails, you write just enough code to pass the test, and then you sort of continue in that loop, adding more features and building up your program. The problem is we have all these attempt tests that are going to run, and they have certain expectations. So I'm just going to try to implement what I think they're looking for, and we'll take it from there. And certainly pause the video and try this on your own first, and then go ahead and come back when you're ready. So it looks like, again, they have this color property. Let's add that. Public, that's a string, right? They noted double quotation marks in these words, and they have a lowercase c. I'll just leave it as this for now. And then we need a constructor to build ghost objects. And that's simply saying public and the name of the class, right? We could put parameters in here, but we know that there aren't any that are necessary for this class. And so, also note this isn't static, right? This isn't a static class either, like we had in a recent challenge. So we're actually going to be making objects. This is object-oriented programming turned on. If you sort of remember how I described that static keyword is kind of shutting that feature down. So with that, I think the idea will be to generate a random color, one of these 4, and sort of populate this color variable with that. And hopefully that does the trick. And so the idea is that I'll build up a list of available colors. They have 4 here. Let's do that first. This could be private. The outside world doesn't need to know about this, right? And I'll make a list of strings. I'll call them colors. New list of string. And I'll use the curly braces and initialize it with some values. White, yellow, purple, and red. Okay. And we could have initialized this in the constructor too, right? I just chose to do it here. So we have colors. Now the idea will be is if I draw a random number between 0 and 3, then I can just sort of access this list at the random index and populate this color field with one of these values. And so how do you do that? Well, there's a random class in C#. Let's go to the top here. And I actually went to its next method. That's how you actually get the number. And we'll look at an example of that. I want this version where, you know what, I could use this one too. This one's nice if you have a range that doesn't start at 0, but we'll be starting at 0, so I think this one will suffice. But let's say you wanted your number to be between 3 and 12. You could do that with passing 2 values here. Let's go check this one out. Max value. And note that the upper bound is exclusive, so the value that you pass in here won't actually be eligible. And that's nice, because then I can just use the list size as that upper bound. And because the elements are 0-based, they used 0-based numbering, I don't want it to actually use the count of the list, right? That would run off. That'd be 1 over a valid index. So that should work out. And the examples here you can check out if you'd like. Let's see. Notice that you create a random object first, and then once you have that, let's see, random, then they call this next method with the upper bound. And notice it starts at 0. The description said non-negative, right? So yeah, that's the idea. We got to create this random object first. I'm not going to seed mine. You could do that. Feel free to read more about that if you'd like. But just know that the number, it's not truly random numbers. There's something called pseudorandom numbers, and so you can kind of change the sequence you get by seeding this thing appropriately, so you're not always getting the same values. In here it's not that important. We just want a somewhat equal distribution so that all of these colors are getting used at some point. And so let's make a random, I think they called theirs RND, new random. Again, you can seed it if you want. And then once I have that, we have this next method available, right? So I could say int randNum is equal to randNext, and we can say colors dot list. I can't remember if it's count or length. Let's try count. Colors.count. And so it'll be, if our size is 4, right? So this should give us random numbers between 0 and 3, which is perfect. And then you can take that random number and you could say color equals colors index of random, right? And you don't need a line, you don't need to break this out into its own line. You could put the random next right in the brackets there if you like to condense things. So that should get us a new object with a random color with equal distribution. You know, it's going to call these numbers 0 through 3 with equal weight. So it shouldn't take you long to get an example of each color. I'm going to go ahead and try this. Let's see what we get. Oh, I know one problem. Okay, so what do you got to do to get this list data collection in? Remember the library we need for that? That would be using system collections and generic. That should cover us there. And so, let's see, we have a failure expected, string length of 8, but was 6. Strings differ at index 0, actual. Oh, so this is not an appropriate test, so I think I should comment that out. And I should be using, I'm going to just short circuit the test button here because we don't have any tests, and I'll just go right to the attempt. I wonder if I even need to comment it out if I go right to attempt. We don't have any appropriate tests. Okay, so error, ghost does not contain a definition. Look at this. Now they're saying, we can tell they're expecting a method called GetColor, accepting a first argument of type ghost. So clearly they were expecting us to make a method called GetColor, and I'm pretty sure they didn't tell us to do that in the instructions. They showed this property when in reality they should have showed ghost.getColor leads to one of these values. So I would call that a mistake with this. Kata, looks like there are issues reported. Maybe someone else has already commented on that. But anyway, let's change this up then. We can do it. I'm going to convert this over then to a private field. Private string color. I'm using a leading underscore and lowercase letter. It's a or at least it used to be a common way of formatting these. It's even better when you don't have an IDE and you don't have fancy tools that can tell you immediately if things are class members or if they're local variables, but name however you like. So we've got that, and let's make this public method that they're apparently expecting called GetColor. I think it said in our error message. Public, we need it to be public so the tests can access it, right? They called it GetColor, and there were no parameters, and we could simply say return color. Notice I just put the whole method body on one line because it's so short. You don't have to do that, but there's nothing that prevents you from doing that. So let's see if this works. They'll have the method they're looking for. Method must have, oh, wow. Yeah, that was bad. Go ahead and see if you can figure out what I did wrong. This is almost worded like a constructor, right? There's no return type. Constructors don't have return types. They make objects of the class. But in this case, there should most definitely be a return type. This is a method, and it's returning a string value. And so let's give them their string. The name color does not exist in the current context. Oh, I forgot to adjust my value in the constructor, right? We know there's nothing in the class called color anymore after we rename this. So let's try that. And there's a lot of green. That looks good. So yeah, they should have told us about that they were expecting a method. But look at this. You could tell from their tests, they would have run so many calls to creating ghost objects, and who knows what their threshold was, but they were expecting to encounter a purple ghost within so many calls to the function, right? And that should have happened fairly quick for us with our equal weights on each color. And then they do the same thing for red, white, and yellow. So yeah, we got it. Looks good. I'll go ahead and submit as I have it here. It's almost like Pac-Man, right? Creating various colored ghosts. They got the colors wrong, but colors, yep, they got the GetColor method. Color. Pretty similar to what we did, right? I always like to put my public methods and properties and members on top. That way someone looking at my class can immediately see the public interface of the class, and they're not. You can imagine if you had a large class and you're kind of scrolling and like, this method's public, this one's private, this one's public, there's 3 private, and you're just trying to figure out what methods you can call on the class, and it's kind of obnoxious. So I try to put that those public methods right at the top in members too, so people can immediately see what they can do with the class. It's a nice courtesy in my opinion. But yeah, people pretty much doing the same thing. They wrote out the numbers 0 to 4, but wasn't necessary. Problem is, if you come in later and add a color, let's say you add blue, and then you forget to update this, you're stuck with 4, then you never even have a chance to draw that new value. So you got to kind of watch out. You can get yourself in trouble that way. That's kind of cool. They use a enum there. So yeah, feel free to hit me up with questions. I apologize for the unclear instructions there, but we powered through it. Thanks for watching.